delighted to be back. The world is all continuing, different levels of shutdown I'm noticing around the world. So very interesting to see, very interesting to be a part of what's happening, which is some releasing of some of the restrictions that we're seeing in some parts of the world, whereas other parts of the world are still very much in lockdown. And I'm here once again for Leadership Live Tuesday to talk to you about leading in a crisis. What are the key topics that are really important to look at? What are some tips that you can share, think about, or learn in terms of leading in a crisis? So I'd like to invite you this time, just to start off, first of all, as always, by saying hello. So say hello to me in the chat, because I'd really like to see that you're on. I'd love to see who's on. So that's exciting for me to know. And also, I'd love to, okay, I see some people have joined, so I'm really, really happy to see that. Welcome to our live. I'm really excited to have you here. And the other thing I want to ask you to do is to write down in the chat some of the topics that have come up for you in terms of this situation, leading a business, leading a team, and leading a family, leading a community, whatever leader category you might be in. And I really do believe that we are leaders in various areas of our lives. It's not just related to work. It's not just related to being a manager at work. It's actually, we are leaders in various aspects of our life. So I would love to know what is challenging you at the moment in terms of being a leader, in terms of facing these challenging, turbulent, strange times, a whole lot of uncertainty that we just don't know what will happen, how long it will last, what will be when we come to the other end. So I see Ivan, Idan, Liel, Liska, welcome, and thank you for joining my live today. I'm really excited to have you here. Today's topic is never let a good crisis go to waste. And this quote is attributed to Winston Churchill. So now I was looking at where did this quote originate, because it is something that I've heard from various people. There is some debate about whether Churchill actually said this or not. But if we go with the Churchill story, the story is that after World War II, he actually said this about the establishment of the UN in 1945. And what was really interesting about that is that it was three powers in the world that came together. It was incredibly unexpected that they would come together in such a way and form this organization. So what Churchill was identifying there is that in every crisis, there is something that comes out of it. There's an opportunity that comes out of it. And that for sure is what we see happening no matter what crisis we face. And I know that while we're in the crisis, it's really difficult to look forward and say, okay, what are the opportunities? What can we look forward to? How can we see ourselves coming out of it and doing something different? Because we are facing a whole lot of challenge and uncertainty and change, and really, really, we don't know what's going to be next. So it's not an easy thing to do, but it is a good question to ask. And that's what we're going to be asking today. What are the opportunities that we can maybe identify and start to work on as a result of our crisis that we're facing at the moment? And I think that there are many that have already been identified, and there can be even more if we just shift our mindset a little bit to say, okay, we're in a crisis. What opportunity can arise from this for us? How can we take this crisis and not let it mean nothing or be for nothing? And we know that whenever there's a downturn, there's also an upturn. Whatever kind of comes down, whatever mistakes we make, whatever failures we make, we certainly see that after the crisis is over, or in the period when it starts to recover, we see a lot of blossoming. We see a lot of opportunities coming to the fore that haven't been there before. So that is something that we can really look forward to, and we know that it will happen. So as I say, it's difficult to see it in the moment while we're in the crisis, but if we can hold on to that thought and that idea, perhaps it will also help us to get through. So here I see a question from Ivan. Cash flow for staff, rent, that is non-existent. And that's for sure. We have seen that cash flow is a real issue for businesses that have had to shut down during the lockdown period. Something that's really, really difficult and challenging in this time. So thanks for sharing that, Ivan. And I know that businesses have got to take some clear measures and steps in order to deal with that. So see how much you can defer to make. Don't be shy to ask. Don't be shy to say, you know what, I haven't got cash flow for this right now. What terms can we arrange to make payments later on, to defer, to delay it, to break it up in some way? That's just touching in on that for a moment. So going back to how do you find the opportunity? What I've certainly observed working with my clients in this period is that there are 3 things that clients are focusing on. So while in lockdown, there is the element of working from home and keeping the business running. It's also an opportunity to focus on 3 things that have come up as themes through my work with clients. And I really want to talk about those today. The 3 things are like this. The first one is focusing on building the brand. The second one is focusing on building relationships. And the third one is finding creative ways to do things differently as a result of the crisis that we forced into, the situation that we forced into that's not out of our own choice. So we have to be creative about how we do things. So I want to touch on each of those a little bit more deeply because I think there's a lot of value in being able to know more about what we can do with each one of those. And I think I saw Tammy Perry, your name pop out. So hello, Tammy, if you're there. I'm really excited that you're on. And let's start with building the brand. So I think what's really important here, and this is key to the work that I've been doing with many of my clients, is that in this time, the way you approach the situation, the crisis, your people and your business is really going to show how you handle crisis. It shows your clients, your staff, your stakeholders, your suppliers. It shows kind of what you're made of. It shows what your brand really stands for. Are you going to walk the talk of all those good things that you've always spoken about, whether it's purpose and values and character and behavior and real leadership in this time of crisis? Or are you going to toss everything to the wind because now you're in crisis, you're focusing on cash flow, and you're going to be ruthless about what needs to be done in order to maintain the cash flow? So that's a good question to ask yourself. What does your brand stand for? And how do you build this brand in this time? Because I believe that when we move out of the crisis and we start moving into the period of blossoming and growth again, people are going to want to know more. People are going to look back on this time, see how you handled yourself, and then decide if they still want to do business with you. And I think this applies to customers. It applies to your own staff. I think we're going to see something happening because people are now using staff. Employees are at home. They have time to reflect and think about things. And they really want to know if they are going to want to work with this business afterwards, because the way a business and leaders handle crisis shows the character of the leaders and the business, the walking the talk of the values and purpose, and people are going to be making a decision about whether they want to continue being in relationship with you. So don't overlook this fact of what your brand stands for, because this can be the make or break of your ongoing relationships afterwards. And I see a lot of names popping up, and I can't capture each one, but I'm really delighted as people join and come in. It's really exciting for me. So thank you again for being here. And please do say hi in the comments, because then I can see what you're saying and I can definitely respond. So say hello and share some of your questions and thoughts about what are your challenges in this time of leadership and crisis. So I spoke about 3 things that are really good to focus on in times of crisis. And the first one we've covered now is really focusing on building your brand, walking the talk, and showing what you're made of, showing your character, because that's going to stand you in good stead when we start to come out of it. The second area I spoke about, or I mentioned, was the area of building relationships. And that's something that's really come to the fore in this time, because on the one hand, people are being encouraged or having to find different ways to be in relationship, because you're not just seeing people at the office anymore. You're not meeting face to face physically in any way. So there's a distancing that's happening, the social distancing, the physical distancing that's happening, which is requiring us to be more intentional about the relationships that we want to build and how we build those relationships. And very closely connected to your brand is how you handle the relationships with, again, your customers, your employees, and various stakeholders is going to determine how your relationship continues afterwards. So are you making an effort to go the extra mile to really understand what your customers need at this time, to understand what your employees need at this time, and to really be caring and thoughtful about how you interact and how you build your relationships and how you come together? Or are you, again, putting your head down saying, this is crisis time, I'm only focusing about the money, cash flow, all those very real things that I'm kind of leaving everything aside, leaving it to go by the wayside? That's not advisable. You need to invest time and focus on your relationships across the board. Because again, if you're going to show yourself up to be the caring, empathic, concerned partner in this time of crisis, people are going to want to continue to be in relationship with you later on. And there's another aspect of the relationship side, which is also some people are finding that they have more time to connect with people. So it's a good opportunity to explore what relationships would you like to develop even further? What relationships would you perhaps like to start? Who can you network with, and who do you know in your network that can introduce you to other people so that you can really use some of the time that's been freed up for us to build relationships that are also beyond our regular networks at the moment? That's building relationships. And then the third element was doing things creatively. And here is where the opportunity really comes in terms of what we do. So we've seen already many, many opportunities come up through creative ways of working. We know that our workplace has almost overnight been forced into a work remotely situation, working from home situation. We even have an acronym for it now. The articles that I'm seeing are all about WFH, work from home. So this is a change process that's been implemented so quickly and so effectively. It's really incredible to watch. I do say that if this is something that we wanted to implement in the normal, regular day-to-day working life, it would have taken a steer co and a process and a structure and discussions and debates. And here we've seen this happening so quickly. I know one of my clients has had to create the circumstances or support the circumstances for 1,000 staff to be able to work from home. Previously, staff that wouldn't have even thought about it. In a week, or even less than a week, I think it was 3 days in the notice period that was given in South Africa, they all had laptops, they all were made sure that they had routers with Wi-Fi connectivity and all of that so that they could be set up to work from home. And the opportunities that are coming out of that are enormous, because first of all, the option for balance, for people to really decide how much of their work life do they perhaps want to have, as a work from home option. I know that I was speaking to another client of mine who has beautiful office space, and she was saying, a CEO who was saying, well, we locked into a lease, but when this lease is over, I'm going to rethink if we need all that office space, because maybe we can move into a hot desking situation where people kind of swap desks and we don't need all the space in the office. It is nice to come to the office sometimes, but it doesn't have to be the all the time default way. So opportunities around that. We know that there are industries that are doing really, really well at the moment, technology and virtual platforms and healthcare and pharma and all of those. There are industries that are actually doing well. And that is something not to forget, because when we're in a downturn or we're in a slowdown, we think everyone's like that. But there are pockets of industry that are doing really, really well. And that's what's going to help the revival and the growth when we come back. Another opportunity that's created from this is the opportunity for kindness. Because of the stress levels and the levels of uncertainty and challenge, there's huge opportunity to do good things and to do kind things for each other, whether it's in the workplace or outside of the workplace. And I certainly have seen so many initiatives coming out to just help people get the emotional support, physical support, whatever it is that they need in order to really get through this time well. And then we have an opportunity to look at what's really essential for us. So whether it's opportunity to look at what's essential from a work point of view, you know, is there a bit of overuse of certain elements of business that could be pared down because all of a sudden everything's had to kind of really be constricted and brought down to the bare minimum and essentials, or even from a consumerism point of view. Are we relooking at how we spend, what we buy? Do we really need it? And I know we were also talking about how much we've saved on petrol for this month, and we're actually wondering if the insurance companies are going to give us a discount on our car insurance premiums, because we're certainly not driving anywhere. So if there are any insurance people out there listening, please do comment on that. I'd love to hear. So there are always opportunities in crisis. And I'm going to say again that even though it's really difficult to, when you're in the crisis and you're having a hard time to think about what are the opportunities, it's really important to sometimes just take yourself out of your particular set of circumstances, step back and say, well, what can I look forward to in terms of opportunity? And I know that there's a different way to do business that's already showing up, and it's going to show up and accelerate even more. And I want to give a shout out to Sarah Ranan, who just blew me away with her. She's a photographer, a really talented one. And she's come up with a way to take photos online and create a portfolio for people. So big shout out to you, Sarah. I don't know if you're on. I know you usually do come. I don't know if you came today. But just shout out to you for being really creative about a profession that you think cannot be taken online. And here you've done something really special and magical. So I invite you to think about these opportunities and what's possible for you, to think about how you can do things differently, and to not be shy to get creative. I mean, Ivan mentioned the cash flow. Cash flow is a huge issue at the moment and really, really troubling. Get creative about how you spend and how you negotiate terms for whatever it is that you need to pay for. I would definitely say don't rush to pay. People are certainly understanding. Government bodies for sure are going to, need to be called to some kind of assistance and help, and I believe that they will step up to it. So use the opportunity to renegotiate terms of payments. Be creative about that. So I guess my main message for today is really, really about being creative. And I know that we have here a wake-up call in terms of this crisis that has just landed on us. And what we want to do is we want to ask ourselves, we've received a wake-up call. What is it that we want to wake up to? Okay, what is it that you want to wake up to? And then take the opportunity, grab it, make it happen, live it. And like I always say, and hello, Jason, great to have you here. Like I always say, it's also okay in between the positivity and looking for opportunity and trying to change perspective and do something different. It's also okay to sometimes watch a little bit of Netflix and scroll on your social media feed. So yes, that's also okay. But please do say hello in the comments, say goodbye. Please do give me ideas for future topics, because I'd love to know what you guys are thinking of. So far, I've come up with topics. I've had a suggestion. Thank you, Taryn, for your suggestion about communication before. If you do have a question or it will be very helpful for me. So please do write in the comments what's on your mind in this time. What is it that you'd like me to maybe shed a little bit of my thoughts and reflections on? And I look forward to seeing you next week on Leadership Live Tuesday with a new topic on leadership. I'm looking forward to your suggestions so that I can address one of those. And I'll leave with that question of, we've had a wake-up call. What is it that you want to wake up to? And then make it happen. Have a beautiful evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining me, and see you next week.